Last time on Astro's Dev Log, Astro-Drifter shared tales from Anime Nebraska on 2025 and how he managed to bring home a Judge's Choice Award from the Hall Cosplay Contest. But then, an unexpected silence descended upon the channel. Much time has passed since we've heard from Astro. Well, unless you follow him on TikTok or watch the short. Anyways, now, Astro is breaking the silence. Brace yourself, because it's time to dive into 2026's first thrilling entry of Astro's Dev Log.
Suddenly finding yourself in orbit.
Godspeed, Jonathan.
All right, lift off and the clock has started. Yes, sir. Reading it loud and clear.
Computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Discovery Houston, I've got a good picture of Steve.
Three, two, one, zero.
Now playing entry 19.
Stranger, I'm so sorry to bother you because I can see you're a little busy at the moment, but I don't get a lot of social activity down here. So, I was wondering if I could share what I've been working on with you. Based on that surprised look on your face, I can tell you're more than interested. Well, that's great news, but we better get to it because I've got no time to waste. Hello, my name is Astro-Drifter. I've been gone for a while. Sorry about that, but I really needed a break after entry 18. I wasn't expecting it to take 4 weeks to put together. Normally, I only need 2. By the end of it, I looked like one of those hyper-realistic SpongeBob gags. So I kinda decided to take December off. For the most part. Despite the fact I actually have quite a lot to say. I've got leftovers from 2025, I've got some new upgrades I want to talk about, and a truckload of other stuff. So, you've waited long enough. Let's get into it. So, where to start? Right. Yes. Okay, let's start with the small stuff. First off, as you're all aware, I didn't post a video last month. Or did I? I actually put together a really short recap of all the 2025 devlog entries, and you can actually find that here on YouTube or on TikTok. I strongly recommend any new viewers, or old ones that haven't checked in for a while, watch that before we go any further because it will explain just enough to get you up to speed. There will be a link in the description. Now, let's talk upgrades. For example, my voice. You may have noticed that I sound oh so much better. I hope. Anyways, I finally got a new microphone. Emphasis on phone. This lovely handset was crafted by the folks over at STATIKSTRAMENTZ and has been used by some of my favorite music artists like WINSLOW and JULIANA. If you love music that makes you feel sad, you should definitely check them out. Next up, I finally upgraded my laptop. I'm not going to get into the specs, but just know that this new guy means business. The AMD Ryzen 9 RTX 5070 kind of business. But here's the thing. I'm the type of person that gets attached to my devices, and me and my old laptop have been through quite a lot. Like Project Peel, my time as a streamer, the rise of the devlog, and pretty much all of the developments for Project 256. We've got a lot of history together, which leads me into my next point. In order to clear my conscience, as a send-off farewell tour sort of thing, I decided to return to an old Blender project from 2023 in honor of all the things I've done with my HP. This one-off project started as a means to experiment with animation and rigging in Blender, but it kinda snowballed into something a lot more demanding. This is what happens when your animation gets ahead of you and you're way too hyped for a certain movie that came out in October of 2023. You know what I'm talking about. No, not that one. No, not that one either. Keep trying. No. Jeez, how many movies came out in October of 23? This one. The one with the animatronic bear and the guy that played Shaggy. This is the one we're looking for. This is my first, and likely only, Five Nights at Freddy's parody, and it takes place at a fish parlor.
Folks, say hello to Wally Weldo and the Flappers. This unlikely band of rowdy marine misfits includes Gorp, Flippo, Heinz, Sneak, and the star of the show, Wally Weldo, the singing walrus. No matter the hemisphere, they've got quite the love for music and fish. Join us for a bite as these Arctic artisans serenade you with the sultry sounds of swing, jazz, and big band. For an experience you won't soon forget, come down and visit Wally and the boys. They'll have you beached.
I'll explain, but I'll also try to keep this brief. Originally, this was only going to be about Wally. I wanted a model that I could use to experiment with, as I mentioned. But then my mind started to come up with other ideas, and that's where the rest of the band came in. So I quickly made all the models for the penguins and the stage, and that's when things started to go wrong. I realized I needed to make instruments for each of the penguins, on top of speakers, wires, light fixtures, a backdrop, and loads of other stuff, and I still hadn't even finished making Wally. Around that point, my enthusiasm for the project sort of died. And since I didn't want to split my energy between Wally, Project Peel, and my streams, I decided to abandon it until a later date. And so, last month, I returned and finished it off. The penguins were fitted with their instruments, I finished the stage, and Wally was textured and fully rigged. I managed to get out some pretty FNAF-esque artwork, I would say. I only wish I could have made some animations, but these stills were already pushing my old laptop to the limit. This project is officially complete. However, one day, I'm going to come back and make something else with it because, I'll be honest, I love Wally. I had a lot of fun putting him together, exoskeleton and all, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface of what I can learn by working with him and the boys. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Wally, and if you think I should come back around for another set of renders, because I have some ideas. Switching gears, there's one other project I've been silently working on in the background. Most of you guys wouldn't know this, but I got my rise as a graphic designer by making graphics for stream overlays. I've made quite a few over the years, including ones for Anime Nebrascon and Do Space. And recently, I've been working with a close friend to refresh her overlay as she makes her return to the Twitch scene as PIXABAY. This new overlay includes crazy things like animated graphics, highly customized aesthetics, and most challenging of all, collaboration. Anyways, she will be returning to the fold sometime next month, and if you can, you should go give her a visit. Links to her channel will be in the description below. Now, finally, Project 256 updates. Let's talk about plasmoids. Way back in September, I said I had to finish the visuals of at least one by the end of 2025, or there would be consequences. I really don't know what my thought process was at that time, but I was under a lot of stress when I made that devlog, so I probably wasn't as level-headed as I should have been. There are a lot of things I want to say about that video, but we'll get to that later. No, I did not completely finish one of the plasmoids. But I got pretty damn close. Bear with me. After September, my first order of business was to make progress on the skin. This was something that I'd been meaning to tackle for a while and just hadn't. After about a solid week of trial and error, I finally got to a result that I liked. This gooey, plasma-esque sun material is the closest I've gotten to a final result since this project started back in late 2024. And while it might seem simple on the surface, I promise you, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. The skin wasn't the only thing I worked on. I have someone I'd like you to meet. This is Bob. Bob is a test dummy that I use to experiment with animation and rigging solutions. He's built like one of the actual plasmoids under the hood, but he's easier to work with, and I can show you footage of him without spoiling anything. My first experiment was just to see how this rig would actually behave in Unity. At first, all he did was float around. An instant success. Then I decided to make him twirl his head around in Blender and see how well that animation transferred over to Unity. Another instant success. Things really started heating up when I attempted to animate his mouth. The mouth is supposed to jitter as it slowly opens wider and wider, like he's screaming. Slowly. My approach to doing this wasn't very straightforward, but in the end, I was rewarded with exactly what I set out to do. But I wasn't done yet. The last thing I managed to work on with Bob was that Dragon Ball Z sparking effect I mentioned back in September. I'd already done most of the work on it earlier last year, but I never managed to test it with the 3D model. I needed to fiddle around with quite a few settings, but I remember this going smoothly as well. And while the result isn't perfect, it's certainly getting close. And that's when I started working on entry 18. you all know the rest. You're caught up now. You might want to take a stretch break, drink some water, get a snack, come back. This video is going to be a lot longer than I want it to be, but that's what happens when you're gone for a month and a half. So, what can you do? Okay, time for a transition. Transition now. Transition. Time to transition. I don't know how to write myself out of this. Transition. Transition. Transition, please. Now would be a great time to transition. First, I want to address some things I said in entry 17. I was way too dramatic in that video. As you may remember, I established 2 rules about working on Project 256, being that I'm not allowed to backtrack, and I'm only allowed to take one thing at a time. I have decided to loosen up on those rules, just a bit. At the time I made those rules, the cosplay stuff was at its most stressful, and there were things going on at my workplace that weren't helping. So I wasn't in a great place to make those rules, and after looking back at it with a clear mind, it kinda seems like I was being a little harsh, but also I think they're still necessary. One other rather depressing thing, I have to address some new developments at my workplace. Without getting too specific, there's a certain deal that my company is making. I'm not sure how likely or unlikely this is, but if this deal goes through, there is a chance I could lose my job. And I'm bringing it up because if I do, or have a reason to believe that I will, this channel and everything I'm working on will cease. That is, until I've managed to find another job, but it could be months, it could be a year, there's no telling. As grim as it sounds, this is only a warning. Nothing has happened yet. However, if events do happen, they will happen quickly, and I likely won't be able to pivot without closing down the channel for a while. So now more than ever, it is so important to follow along with my socials, because they might be the last place you hear from me until things come back around. Wow! That was depressing. Here, have this awesome picture of a dog. Or perhaps a cat? Maybe you'd prefer a dolphin. How about a baby elephant? Ooh, yeah! Get in on a little of that baby seal action. How about this awesome news article where divers rescue a ray tangled in deadly fishing line, once freed and circled them with a thank you. There, much better. Now that you're at least a little less depressed, we can move on. Let's chat about my big awesome plan for 2026. The plan is simple. Big picture, finish Project 256. Of course, this is more like one of those pictures where there's tons of tiny pictures that are put together to ultimately make a much larger picture. But yes, my only goal this year is to finish Project 256. No conventions, no costumes, just Project 256. Which sounds simple on paper, but by now we all know it's actually anything but. There are a lot of moving parts that I still haven't even touched. I do have a more in-depth plan to get this done, but I probably won't share that with you until a little later because I'm still ironing out the details. While this month hasn't gone quite as it was supposed to, thanks to the stuff about my workplace, my plans haven't changed too much. My first step of my grand master plan is refamiliarizing myself with the inner workings behind Project 256 and C# in general. After November, I sorta stepped away from everything, including my notes. So I need to get back on the saddle and get things moving again. After that, we'll see. I'm trying to keep things loose, but also somewhat organized. Okay. Having all that said, I believe I can finally bring this thing to a close. Whew! This has been a workout for my jaw. Sorry, that probably sounded a little odd. It's just been so long since I've yapped about what I'm doing like this. My tongue feels all out of shape. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. Don't forget to leave a comment down below about my friend Wally. He's expecting your feedback. Everything helps, so thanks again. If you want more from me, you can find me on Blue Sky, where I post updates, teasers, and complain about things, as well as TikTok, where I post short-form content and repost memes. Links to those, as well as other resources I've mentioned during this video, can be found in the description below. Till next time, this is AstroDrifter, signing off.
Oh, right, wait.
Sorry, there's actually somebody else outside who wants to meet you. I'll send them right in.
Hello, everybody. My name's Markiplier.